Welcome back, I'm Kim Bailey and this is Floral Art Online, the Designs Dissected series, where we have our AI DesignEye look at an old competition design of mine and give us some suggestions for improvements, but also its independent analysis based on the principles and elements of design. This week we're looking at a title of Wild and Woolly. It was a bench-based design, 70 centimetres wide, the height was unlimited, judged from the front, and I've got a feeling, although I can't find the description, that roses had to be used in this particular design. And so, because it would be one of the only reasons I would use roses in a design like this, so it must have been that roses had to be used in this design. In constructing it, I had this wonderful piece of palm inflorescence that was had washed up on the side of a lake near to where I was located at the time. And I thought, as you do as a floral artist, I might just keep that in case I ever need it one day. And when I looked at it, when the schedule came out and I looked at it, I thought I could really make it more into a spherical shape. And so I actually wet it again. It was quite twisted, but it wasn't as spherical as it is now. So I wet it and I moulded it, and I had it tied up for probably about a week and let it dry into that shape. And then that became the basis for the rest of the design. It is placed on the slice of a Banksia tree, which you know I use in quite a lot of my designs as the bases. And it has, the base itself has got a metal rod in it, which the inflorescence is sitting on. There are a number of vials that are covered in felted wool that have both the roses and the Australian native woolly bush, which I thought was a nice touch, given that it was woolly. I have something that was woolly in terms of how it is known commonly, as well as the feel of that particular foliage. And I wanted things to be twisted around, so the wool not only covers the vials, but it is twisted around some of the branches as well. So let's now see what DesignEye has got to tell us about this design. Looking at line, first of all, the design features strong, chaotic and intertwining lines created by the network of branches. These lines create a visually dynamic, web-like structure that conveys a sense of untamed movement. The linear branches are complemented by the vertical lines of the green foliage, providing contrast and direction within the composition. Very much what I wanted to convey. The line in a wild design, the line has to be blurred in my understanding of it. The shape and the form also need to be wild. So let's see what it says about shape and form. The overall form is spherical with an organic and free-flowing quality. This circular shape creates a sense of unity and containment despite the wild arrangement. The organic shapes of the twigs and loops contribute to the natural woolly aesthetic. So looking at both line and shape and form, what I wanted out of this design was for it to be controlled wild. So not haphazard wild, not look like it had just been thrown together, but controlled in the sense that there was a definite shape and a definite form, and that was partly due to the fact that I had to use the roses. Now roses are a very distinctive shape and form, and they do create a line of their own. So I needed to be able to incorporate them without them taking over the shape of the form and the line of this design, and trying to keep it wild and woolly. Texture. The texture is a key strength in this design. The rough, dry texture of the tangled branches contrasts effectively with the softness of the wool and the feathery greenery. The incorporation of felted wool adds tactile interest and a modern twist to the natural materials. I think in this instance, once again, because I had to use the roses and I knew they were smooth, that part of my textural contrast was taken care of, because when I think about wild and woolly, if I hadn't been forced to use the roses, I think I would have struggled to find something that was a smooth surface, because wild and woolly to me means very texturally rough, and there would have been not enough contrast in the design. So that was a saving grace in the scheduling that I had to use the roses. Colour. The neutral browns and greys of the branches are offset by the pops of bright colours, red, purple and blue, in the wool accents. The green foliage brings a fresh, natural colour contrast grounding the design in an organic theme. The bright colours could be distributed more evenly to create better visual flow. I think that's very true. I think when I look at it now and I look at the image, the focal area is that brown section in the middle that is the very tangled branches, and you do have to look in a certain depth before you see the other stuff. So I needed to bring some of the greenery out, maybe one of the roses out, some of the wool more on the outside than the inside. So I'm sure all that will come up in the suggestions in the future, but always a good idea to go back and have a look at your designs with a critical eye, not to say what you did wrong so much as what you need to do to improve the design, to make it even better than it actually was. Space now. The design makes excellent use of negative space. The open areas between the tangled branches allow for visual breathing room, preventing the design from appearing overly dense. The placement of foliage and wool within this negative space creates focal points, drawing the viewer's eye inward. So very much what I just said before, that there is a very dense area right at the front there in the image, and that you have to be drawn in to see what else is in the design. And the balance of those two things is probably the one thing that I would like to improve on when I look at it critically at this point in time. The piece achieves some asymmetrical balance, with branches sprawling in different directions but still maintaining visual stability. The heavy areas of greenery and wool elements are offset by open spaces and lighter branches. And I think that's very true. I was very careful about the balance. You'll see that there is one section of the inflorescence towards the bottom of the design that seems to be outside of the rest of the design, and that's quite deliberate. I didn't want it to be too perfect a sphere. I wanted it to look a little bit wild. I keep going back to these titles because sometimes they just speak to me so well. Proportion. The spherical form feels proportional within its container, but the distribution of the materials could be slightly refined. Some areas of the branches appear more dominant, potentially overshadowing the colourful wool elements. Exactly what we talked about before. So the proportion of the amount, when we talk about proportion, we talk about the amount of material compared to the amounts of other materials. So the amount of those dried branches, particularly at the front there, is a little bit out of kilter with the rest of the design. So bringing some of the colour to the forefront, bringing some of the foliage to the forefront will help with the proportional balance in the design. Rhythm. The repetition of lines and wool accents creates a sense of rhythm, guiding the viewer's eye through the composition. The interplay between organic movement and structured focal points adds energy and visual interest. I really felt like there was good rhythm in this design. I was very careful with the placements, particularly with the roses, because as you know, I'm not a great fan of roses, and so I struggle with their placement to get them rhythmically placed. So I think this shape and the idea that I could keep it a little bit wild helped me with that placement. And then the placement of the greenery, because I love, at the other end of the scale, I love the Australian woolly bush. That was my trademark foliage for many, many years in competition. People would see it in a piece and say, oh, that must be yours. And they were probably right. So I do like using that, and it bends. It's just got a lovely organic feel to it. For me, it just works really well. Emphasis. The bright red, purple and blue wool elements serve as focal points within the chaotic branches, providing contrast and drawing attention. However, these focal points could be enhanced by further adjusting their placement for better visual flow. So once again, it's coming back to that balance and the focal areas and just the proportions of colour and dried material. So all of them work together in terms of these principles and elements of design to ensure that you get the best possible design as a result. Harmony and unity. The design achieves harmony through its cohesive colour palette and combination of natural and soft materials. The unity could be improved by integrating the wool accents more seamlessly with the branches and foliage, reducing any sense of disconnection. So again, we've talked about that already. It's about bringing that colour through the design, not just in the design, but through the design as well, and maintaining the contrast of the elements that are there. So let's see now what room there is for improvements, suggestions from DesignEye. refine the colour placement. Distribute the colourful wool accents more evenly throughout the piece to ensure better balance and visual flow. Consider using complementary colours, warm oranges or yellows, to enhance the existing colour palette and create more contrast. Now, that's not something I thought of, but if you look at the image, it's got a yellow background on the wall behind it. And that actually does add, if you look at that part of the design as opposed to the part that's got the grey wall behind it, it does add a different dimension to the design. So that is something that I would consider, probably the yellows more so than the oranges. I'm just not a big fan of red and orange together. I don't mind the yellows with it. Enhance integration. Wrap or weave the wool into the branches more deliberately, creating a stronger connection between the materials. This would reduce the appearance of separation and enhance unity. So we've talked about that, and that's definitely something that I know that I need to do with this particular design. Base enhancement. Consider elevating the design slightly or softening the visual weight of the base to create a better balance between the base and the spherical form above it. That's probably very true. I do have another base that is a smaller round of timber, and that might have worked well because it would almost have been lost and been hidden by the spherical arrangement above it, or had that rod that's holding it up higher. In doing that, I still need to make sure that there is some connection between the base and the design above it. So that's something to play around with, and that's what I like about DesignEye, is it gives me things to play around with. It's not necessarily it should be this or it should be that, but it's try this, try that, and then that triggers me to think of other things that I might be able to try, things that I've got in my stockpile that I might be able to mix and match and see how that looks, because now I've got the base photo of this particular design and I can try out others and compare them all, and then just see which design works best for this particular activity. It also gives me practice, and it also means that when a class title like this comes up again, I've got a few alternatives. I've thought about it, and I've got a few ways I can go with a particular design, which is always good in preparation. So there we have our analysis for this week of Wild and Woolly. I forgot to mention in any of that chatter that I've had that this was placed first, and in fact the judge said to me, in her way, what else could I do but give it first, which I'll take as a compliment because I'm sure she meant it that way. She has an interesting communication style, shall we say. But yes, it did place first, and I was extremely happy with that because I felt that it really did meet the criteria of the class title. So if you would like one of your designs analysed by our AI DesignEye, all you need to do is upload an image, and within about 24 hours you'll have your analysis back. All of the analyses that we send out are checked by a human judge as well, just in case there's additional information that we might want to add to that to help you understand what is being suggested or what is being read into the image that you send. That's it for today. Join me again next time. I'm Kim Bailey, and this is Floral Art Online, the Designs Dissected series.